Hello everyone, it's wonderful to have you here once again. We are thrilled to present a fresh story. And without further ado, let's begin. It's been 5 years since I married Susan, a woman I thought was my soulmate. We met at a mutual friend's birthday party. She was so beautiful, inside and out. She had everything I could dream of, beauty and brains, and I genuinely hadn't met anyone like that. I was instantly drawn to her, and the feeling, I believed, was mutual. We dated for 2 years, and in the beginning, it was nothing short of a fairy tale. Our love grew, and every day felt like a dream come true. As time passed, we got married and she moved in with me, but not into a place of our own. My mother, a kind and generous woman, offered us her home and moved into a retirement for the time being, so we can be by ourselves in the house without her interrupting us. She said it would help us save for our future home. My mother never came back, as she found friends and happiness in a retirement home. They had group activities and traveled, so she never felt alone. At first, Susan was fine with the arrangement. Little did I know that this gesture of love from my mother would become the backdrop of my silent suffering. Susan's demeanor began to change subtly. At first, it was small arguments about leaving dishes in the sink or forgetting to take out the trash. I brushed it off as normal relationship bickering. But as the months went by, her words became sharper, cutting deeper into my confidence. "You're so forgetful, Daniel. Can't you do anything right?" She'd sigh, her eyes narrowing. I'd apologize, believing it was my fault for not being more attentive. Sometimes she would make comment like, "You work so hard so we could stay in your mom's trashy family house." I was dumbfounded by the things that came out of her mouth, but she was my wife, and I saw that there was a little logic in what she said, and maybe we should have gotten a place to stay, to start afresh, and not the house where I grew up. Over time, these verbal jabs became a daily occurrence. I'd come home from work, hoping for a warm greeting, but instead, I'd find a cold atmosphere and a list of my perceived faults. "Why is the house always such a mess when I get back? Can't you pick up after yourself?" Every morning, help put things in order before I leave, and then I return to filth. "I wonder if I live with a troll, and you barely spend much time at home before you leave. How do you do it?" Susan would scold me. I'd quietly clean, hoping to appease her. I kept these incidents to myself, thinking I could handle it. After all, I loved Susan, and I believed marriage was about weathering the storms together. But the storms only seemed to brew inside our little world. On a sunny Saturday, we received an invitation to a barbecue organized by Ashley, Susan's best friend. I was hesitant, knowing our recent arguments, but she insisted, promising it would be fun. I wanted to believe her, to trust that we could have a good time. The party was in full swing when we arrived. Laughter filled the air, and the smell of grilled meat tantalized my senses. I felt a momentary happiness, thinking this might be the turning point we needed. We mingled, catching up with old friends. I felt a sense of normalcy, a brief respite from the tension at home. But as the wine flowed, so did Susan's tongue. "You're being so quiet, Daniel. Can't you hold a conversation?" She whispered harshly in my ear. I smiled lightly. As I reached for a glass of red wine, intending to calm my nerves, Susan began recounting my stories to her friends, painting me as the forgetful, clumsy husband who was never good enough and couldn't do anything properly. A peculiar story caught my ear. I stood there in shock, feeling the weight of their laughter. And then She paused for dramatic effect. "He actually forgot our anniversary. Can you believe it?" Her eyes sparkled with mock amusement. She was enjoying soiling my image in front of her friends. It was something a good wife shouldn't do. She ought to protect me like I have protected her all these years. I felt the blood rush to my head. It was true, I'd forgotten, a mistake that had hurt Susan deeply. I felt remorseful about it, so planned a romantic weekend getaway, which included a surprise trip to a quaint vineyard, a place I knew she'd always wanted to visit. I thought the gesture would show her how much I cared and help mend the rift between us. The words she uttered made me want to defend myself, but the words stuck in my throat. I tried to move closer to her, but stumbled slightly. This caused Susan to turn, and in that moment, the red wine in her hand splashed across her pristine white dress. A dress she was obviously proud of and would wear to occasions she deemed special. The vibrant red stain stood out like a sore thumb. Susan's eyes widened, and I knew that look. It was a mixture of disbelief and anger. Before I could utter a word of apology, Susan's hand moved swiftly, and the remaining wine in her glass flew through the air, drenching my face and shirt. The cold liquid stung my eyes, but it was the anger and disgust in Susan's voice that truly pierced my heart. "You never seem to get it right, do you, Daniel?" she shouted, her voice carrying a mixture of feelings I could not seem to comprehend. "This dress was expensive, and now it's ruined, just like my day. How are you this stupid and insensitive?" The laughter in the party died down. It got replaced by awkward silence, and I could pick out some people in the back whispering. All eyes were on us. I felt the heat of embarrassment and frustration. With my pride wounded and my face burning, I turned and walked toward the table, my movements precise and controlled. I placed my glass down. I couldn't bear to stay, not with the weight of the whole situation and the judgmental stares of her friends. I drove home, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. The anger and humiliation boiled within me. I thought of all the things she did to me when we were at home, the hurtful words I overlooked. Was I that blinded by love? Did she truly love me? Why was she acting this way? I parked the car at my usual spot by the side of the street because there wasn't enough space at the driveway for both of our cars. When I walked into the house, I knew I had to do something, anything, to assert myself. My phone rang, and it was a call from Ashley's husband, Bill. He was inquiring about my well-being, but a voice in the background caught my attention. There was an irritation in her voice as she said, "I can't believe Bill would call such a worthless human being. He's such a mommy's boy. He doesn't do anything for himself. I can't tell what made him attractive to me in the first place." As I heard this, my heart sank. I ended the call. I questioned myself and arrived at a decision I knew would hurt me, but it was the right thing to do. I gathered Susan's belongings, her clothes, shoes, and personal items, and placed them neatly outside the front door. It was a symbolic gesture, a way to say, "This ends here." As the sun set, I sat in the living room, my heart racing, waiting for her to return. I knew this would provoke a reaction, but I was done being the silent victim. The sound of a car pulling up in front of the house jolted me. I heard the door slam, then Susan's voice bidding Ashley goodbye. She must have scanned the porch of the house because I could hear her furious footsteps approaching. Susan's voice, laced with anger, rang through the house. "Daniel, what the hell is this? Why are my things outside?" She banged on the door, her voice rising with each word. I stayed silent, my heart pounding. I knew engaging would only lead to more insults. I can't deal with that anymore. Susan has bruised my heart through to my soul, and engaging her might be the end of me. "Open this door, you coward!" she screamed. "You think you can embarrass me and get away with it?" I remained steadfast in my silence. Minutes felt like hours as her rage intensified. She walked to the back of the house to check if the back door was open. The door knob rattled as she violently turned it, hoping I left it open. She really thought I wouldn't think to lock the door? Was this how little she thought of me? She picked up my baseball bat from the backyard. She moved back to the front door. She screamed and tried to break it down. She didn't have enough strength. She smashed the windows and kicked the garden gnomes in different directions. After her fit of rage and screaming, I could hear her search through her things. I could hear the jiggle from her bunch of keys. She muttered some offensive word before shouting, "Fine. Stay there, you pathetic man. You'll regret this." Her voice trailed off as she stormed to her car. I heard the engine roar, and then the sound of tires screeching as she sped off. I knew she was hurt, but so was I, and for years. The night passed without her return. I barely slept, replaying the events in my mind. I felt a mix of relief and guilt. Was I too harsh? The answer came in the form of a text message. "You'll regret this, Daniel. You'll be sorry you ever met me." Another message came in, "You have no idea what's coming to you." Then another one, "I'll make you pay. You sorry excuse for a man. How dare you? I better not catch you outside." All through the night, I got threatening messages and emails. I finally decided to reply. I tried to reason with her, sending messages explaining my side. But it was to no avail. Every attempt at communication was met with anger and threats. Days turned into a week, and her absence became a strange solace. I realized I hadn't felt this peaceful in years. But my moment of clarity was short-lived. On a Monday morning, my car suddenly developed a fault. I knew it was in peak condition, so I was a bit disoriented, but I had to go to work, so I ran to the bus stop and got a ride. That afternoon, as I returned from work, I found my front yard in disarray. Flowers trampled, garden gnomes smashed. It was a scene of destruction, and I had a feeling about who was responsible. I called Susan, my voice trembling. "Why would you do this?" I secretly hoped it was someone else. I didn't want to believe it, but her attitude confirmed all. "You humiliated me, and now you'll pay." She hung up, leaving me stunned. I stood outside in disbelief. Who was this person? Because I'm sure it's not the woman I married. Has she always been this destructive? The following days were a blur of escalating tension and fear. My once peaceful life had transformed into a nightmare, and I found myself at the center of a twisted drama. Susan's anger had morphed into something darker, something that left me feeling vulnerable and on edge. Each morning brought a new wave of anxiety as I discovered a fresh onslaught of threatening messages on my phone. She added silent calls, devoid of any voice but heavy with implication, which left me feeling like I was being watched and judged. As if the situation couldn't get any worse, I stepped outside one morning to find my car vandalized, all 4 tires slashed, rendering it useless. It was then that I realized this was no longer a matter of reconciliation. It was a battle for my sanity and safety. Filing for divorce seemed like the only way out, a chance to start anew and leave the toxicity behind. I had hoped for a peaceful separation, a clean break, but Susan was determined to make it her personal vendetta. She fought me at every turn, contesting every proposal with a ferocity that left me exhausted. Her tactics were designed to wear me down, and she succeeded in making the process a living nightmare. The courtroom became the stage for our final act, where Susan's performance was nothing short of a masterclass in manipulation. She spun a web of lies, painting herself as the victim and me as the villain. To her, I was the man she would rather flee from and take refuge in the woods, even if it meant living with a bear. Her words cut deep as she fabricated stories of abuse, showing the judge bruise marks on her arms and stomach, claiming I had physically hurt her for years. I stood there stunned, as the judge's expression shifted from impartiality to doubt, a doubt that was a direct result of Susan's convincing act. "Your Honor, it's all a lie." I wanted to shout, but the legal process demanded evidence, not mere words. So, I presented my case, piece by painful piece. The photos of the trashed yard, the angry text messages, and the most damning of all, the video footage of Susan slashing my tires, were laid out for all to see. I was grateful that I always parked my car by the side of the street as it provided a clear footage of my front yard, which could be seen from my dashboard camera. And some kids making content had caught Susan as she was slashing the last tire. She would have done worse if they didn't have her on camera and were asking questions. She would have probably damaged my windscreen and side mirrors. They told me about how she ran off in shame. It was a humiliating experience, reliving those moments of betrayal and anger, but it was necessary to set the record straight. As the proceedings dragged on, I felt like a spectator to my own life, watching as the woman I once loved turned into a stranger capable of unimaginable cruelty. The question that lingered in my mind was no longer about the outcome of the divorce, but about the fragile nature of trust and the lengths some people go to destroy others' lives. In the end, the judge granted the divorce, seeing through Susan's charade. But the ordeal didn't end there. Susan refused to accept the decision, showing up at my house, screaming and causing a scene. I called the police, and they issued a warning. But she didn't stop. She made sure my life was unbearable. One night, I heard a commotion outside. I looked out to find Susan smashing my windscreen with a bat. She had already spray painted on the body, her face contorted with rage. I called the police again, and this time they arrested her. I sought legal counsel and, with the overwhelming evidence, obtained a restraining order against her. It was a necessary step to reclaim my peace. Sometimes I would catch her lurking in the shadows. I informed my friend who was part of the local police about her actions, and he promised to frequently patrol my block, and since he started, I haven't seen any sign of her being around, and I hope she finally learned her lessons just like I have. I reflected on my journey, I realize I ignored the red flags. The subtle put-downs, the constant criticism. These were signs I should have heeded. Marriage is a commitment, but it doesn't mean enduring abuse, verbal or otherwise. I share this story not for pity, but to shed light on the reality of toxic relationships. Here are the lessons I've learned. Recognize red flags and pay attention to the signs. Verbal abuse often starts small but escalates. Don't ignore the insults because they are not a normal part of love. Know your worth and understand that you deserve respect and kindness. No one should make you feel worthless. Take action if you're in a similar situation. Seek help. Talk to friends, family, or professionals. Legal action might be necessary for your well-being. If you're watching this, I want to ask, what would you have done in my shoes? How would you handle a partner who publicly humiliates you? Have you or anyone you know experienced something similar? Share your stories, for they might help someone find the courage to break free. In the end, I learned that love should not hurt, and sometimes the hardest decisions are the right ones. I hope this story reaches and resonates with those who need it. Remember, it's never too late to take control of your life and seek the happiness you deserve. Feel free to share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you again.